Hello everyone and welcome to my little tutorial on how to put together a voice pack for XCOM 2. Now I'm going to state right from the start, this is a very basic tutorial. It's just kind of to get you in the right direction so you can at least get a sample voice in the system and be able to test it out in the character pool or the armory section. Now this tutorial assumes that you've already got the XCOM mod buddy all set up and you've gone through the standard installation process and you can actually get in, create mods and access the XCom Editor. So that's the first thing that we're going to need to do. If you go to your tools menu along the top of XCOM Mod Buddy, second option down should be XCOM 2 Editor. Go ahead and click that now and that will bring up the Unreal Editor for actually editing all the packages in the game. And once the Unreal Editor for XCOM 2 is loaded, you might be presented with a screen like this. You may also have the content browser up, and that's really what we need. If you don't have it up, what you need to do is you need to go to the View menu, and from there you'll be able to go to Browser Windows right at the very top, and the first option under Browser Windows is the Content Browser. If you do that now, that will bring up this screen. Now, because you're going to be creating your own voice pack which you're going to want to distribute, we're going to want it to be in an entirely separate package. Right down the bottom of the Content Browser, you're going to see a New button, and if you just hover over that it will give you a little pop-up. Clicking on it will present you with this window, and what you want to do is you're going to want to fill in a package name up the top. For me, I've picked XanderVoicePack. Another name, for me I've named it exactly the same. I think that's just for internal reference more than anything. And you can ignore the factory setting for the moment. That just controls what's going to be created automatically. When you're happy with your name, hit OK, and it will create the pack for you, and it will populate it with an AK bank. We don't need this. We're going to be creating our own sound cues and importing sound files into here. We do, however, need to save it before we can actually remove the pre-generated content. So if you right-click on your freshly created package, it should be under the New Packages in the hierarchy. You can select Save, and then pick a location and an appropriate name to save it somewhere on your system. Once you've got that saved, you can right-click on the pre-generated content and select Delete from the menu that pops up. That will clear it right out of there. Now, depending on the factory that you selected, it's entirely possible that Unreal Editor will complain when you try and import stuff into this package that it's not being completely loaded. So one thing that I like to do at this stage is browse to wherever I've saved it on the machine and just delete it to make sure that there's no files or references left in there. We can still import into the file. Next time we save it, we'll need to reselect where we're saving it to, but it just means that the process is a lot smoother from here on out. So go ahead and do that now. Okay, and we're now in a position to import all the sound files that you've no doubt recorded in preparation for creating this pack. If you right-click on your package in the Package Explorer, you'll see an option on there that says Import. Select that now, and it will pop up a little dialog box like this one, which will allow you to browse to wherever you've stored the files on your machine and select them. You can select more than one at once, or you can do one as a single test import. In this case, I'm going to select all the ones that I've got available. Once you've got them ready, hit OK, and a little dialog box like this one will pop up. At the very top, make sure that the package you've created is selected. You can see I've got XanderVoicePack selected for mine. And this dialog box will pop up once for every single item that you're importing. You can hit OK to all, but I've tried it in the past and it's given me problems with naming of items. So this time I'm going to go through and I'm going to do each one in turn by hitting OK, 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 OK. Now, for the options, I've expanded it so that I can see them. It's important to select Auto Create Cue. If you don't do this, you're going to have to create your own sound cues later, which can be a pain in the arse, especially if you're dealing with like 1,000 imported sound files. I've also set the cue volume to 1. Now, when you hit OK, it will remember these settings for the next file that you're going to import. So go right ahead and change those over now. You can adjust your cue volume later if you find that your microphone is a bit louder than most, or if it's a bit quieter, you can up it in that sense. But go ahead and get your files imported. If you've done everything correctly, you should be looking at a screen like this, which has got lots of sound cues on one side and sound node waves just next to it. go ahead and save your package again. It's important to save frequently with this process in case anything goes wrong. Now, the next thing you're going to want to do is on the right hand side you'll see that there's a nice little menu option selection bit at the top. Change the object type to sound cues, as I have here, and that'll change the selection available just below it to only the sound cue items. And what we want to do is we want to right click after we've selected all of them. Control A should select them all, and from that, sound classes master has got a little submenu. This is where we select the type of sound that we're creating. And this affects the volume in game, the controllers for whether it's music or the master volume or voice. And if you select it as master, it'll crop up over everything else. So we want to change it to voice within that submenu. Alright, we're done with the content browser for the moment. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to move to the actor classes tab, which is the next one across. If you select that now, you want to make sure that use actor as parent and placeable classes only are deselected, because we're going to do a search. Click in the search box and type XCom character, as if you're about to type in character, and that should thin the selection down to what you see here. Simple enough. We're going to right click on XCom character voice, and there'll be a tiny menu that pops up with create archetype. This is going to allow us to copy it to the package that we've created with all the sounds in. So if you go ahead and select that, you'll need to type your package name in the top line, and at the bottom, give a name to this. In this case, I've called it XComXanderVoice. This is just to identify it within the system in case you're creating several different voices. Let's say you've got a male voice and a female voice, or a Russian voice and a French voice. That's where you'd change the identifier. So we're going to go ahead and do this for XCom character voice, and then we're going to go ahead and do it for XCom character voice bank _x2. We need to give both of them different names, make sure that they're identified, and once that's done, we'll be ready to start linking them all together. Okay, now move back to the content browser. Deselect just the sound cues, because that should still be selected from before. And if you scroll right to the bottom, or right to the top if you've named your archetypes differently, you'll find that they're both listed within the package, and there'll be big black squares, XCom character voice, XCom character voice bank x2, and they'll have the names that you've assigned underneath them. Now's a good point to save your work. For the next step, you're going to want to right click on the XCom character voice one that you've created, in my case XComXanderVoice. From that, select properties, and it'll pop up this new window. Now, you've got to make sure that AK bank name and AK customization event name are both empty. If there's anything in there, even a space, this won't work. First of all, I want you to click the green plus on the voice banks row on the far right hand side. That will create a new line underneath. Then you need to select the XCom character voice bank x2 that you've created, in my case XComXanderVoice bank x2, and click the new green arrow that's appeared on that row. That should insert the package into there as voice bank 0. After that, you need to select any of the sound cues. You must have at least one sound cue, and put that in the character customization queue at the bottom. Just exactly the same way, use the green arrow. If there's nothing in that line, this voice pack will not work. So, just to recap, there needs to be something in the character customization queue, probably one of the sound cues, and there must be a voice bank 0 created, which is linked to your XCom character voice bank x2 archetype. And there should be nothing in the AK bank name and nothing in the AK customization event name. Now that we're done with those assignments, we're going to go into the voice bank x2 properties instead. And when you bring that up, you'll get a huge long list like this one, demonstrating all the different sound types that you can have for a voice bank. What you're going to want to do for each of these is select on the right hand side the sound cue, and then go back to the properties screen and click the little assignment button, which will be the green arrow on the far right hand side of the box. That will assign that cue much in the same way as we did with the XCom character voice. It's just a single assignment for a single command, and just run down the list until you have them all filled. Now, unfortunately, we move a little bit into the unknown now. I don't have a full list of what each of these different alert sounds do, and the names aren't always self-explanatory, especially ones that have been reused from XCom Enemy Unknown. So it's a bit of trial and error to see whether we can get the right phrases into the right slots. But that's part of the fun of experimentation, right? So, once you've got them all assigned, close the properties, and another good time to save your work. Then go to the Tools menu, XCom Utilities, and Generate Sound Banks. That will bring up this sound bank generator window. Now, the tutorial documentation says to set the bank count to 15. Again, we are in complete unknown here. I don't know why we need 15 banks, but set it to 15 and hit the Go button. It'll probably pop up a message saying you've only got one sound variation. That's perfectly fine. Hit OK, and it will go through and generate the sound banks for you. Close your sound bank generator and you'll see a bunch of new packages appear in the window below. Now, for ease of tidiness, we're going to want to move these voice banks into the same package that we created earlier. This will certainly help us in the future if we make other voice packs or if we come back to modify it later on. So what I want you to do is select each of the voice banks down in the bottom left. You can select them all at the same time, and that will limit the selection on the right hand side to just these voice bank archetypes. You can then go ahead and select them all with Control A, right click on them and select Move or Rename. This will bring us up a little dialog box which allows us to actually move them to the package that we created right at the start. You're not going to want to change the names, you're just going to want to retype the package. In my case it's going to be XanderVoicePack, and then once you're done with that, hit OK. Don't hit OK to all because it'll try and rename them all to the same name. Just go OK, OK, OK until you're through all 14 of them. Now that we've moved them, we need to check to make sure that the references are all OK. So save your work first, then go to the XCom character voice archetype that you've created in your original pack. Right click on it, bring up properties, and from there make sure that the references all refer to your voice pack, and then a full stop and then the different voice banks. 1 through 14 you should see. If that's all okay, go ahead and close the properties. And then we're going to regenerate the voice banks just to make sure. So go back to the Tools menu, go to XCom Utilities, and then Generate Sound Banks. Put the bank count up to 15, and then hit Go. It will say, once again, 15 banks were requested, but there's at most one sound variation. Just continue through that, and it will go through, generate the sound banks, and it will save automatically for you at the end. And with that, we're done with the Unreal Editor part of this. You can just go ahead and close the Unreal Editor and go back to the ModBuddy screen. Okay, within the ModBuddy, go ahead and create yourself a new project. You can start with the empty mod. We're going to run through exactly what you need within this. Select empty mod now, and it will pop you up a little dialog box asking for you to put a title in and put a little bit of a description. Should be pretty straightforward. Once we're there, it'll bring us into the main screen. Okay, if you right click on the white project document, a little menu will pop up and you'll want to add 3 new folders: config, content and localization, as shown here. Once you've done that, we're very nearly at the end here, I promise. Right click on the content folder and you're going to want to go add and then add existing item, and you're going to select the package that you were just working on in the Unreal Editor. In my case, XanderVoicePack.UPK. Okay, now we're going to create the config file. If you right click on the config directory and then select add and then new item, a new dialog box will pop up. And we're going to select configuration file, and if you name it XComContent.ini down in the bottom, and then hit OK, it will pop up a brand new, completely empty ini file. And what I'm going to need you to do is I'm going to need you to copy exactly what I've written here. So we start off with the first line, which defines the XCOM game XCom2 body part template manager. And what we're doing here is we're defining a template which we're going to use in the localization later. The template name, XanderVoice, is going to have to copy forwards into the localization. And the archetype name, this is the voice pack right at the start, in my case it's XanderVoicePack. And then the actual voice archetype that you created in the Unreal Editor when we did the first copying from the actor classes. In my case it's XComXanderVoice. Now it's very important, this is case sensitive, so if you need to go back and check, now is a good time to do it. But if you followed the instructions correctly, this should be accurate at the moment. Copy exactly as you see, and we should be good to move on to the localization. One thing I should probably say just for clarity's sake, you can of course change the gender from egender male to egender female if you're making a female voice pack. In my case, I'm making a guy's voice pack, so that's absolutely fine staying as it is. And exactly as we did with the config file, we're going to right click on localization and select new file. This time we're going to do a text file, and it's going to be called XComGame.int. Now when you've created that, you'll be presented with this blank, well, nearly blank file. What I want you to do is I want you to write out exactly what you see here. Now the first part, where I've got XanderVoice, that's the template name that we defined in XComContent.ini. The display name underneath, that's what's actually going to show up when you're selecting the voice. Normally it'd say American English 1, French 3, Italian 2. In my case I'm just going to have Xander. And that should be all the files that we need, so we're ready to actually build and then debug this. Okay, building and debugging is probably the easiest part of this. From the build menu, build solution right at the top. You'll see a bunch of output and stuff go on down the bottom, generating shader cache, launching shader compiler, and it'll even list off the DLC of the pack that you've just created. Wait a while for it to finish, and once it's done that, from the debug menu you're going to want to select start debugging, and that will actually take us into a debugging mode of XCOM 2 where we can actually test it out in the character pool. And here we are in the debugging screen. Okay, this doesn't look like the yeah, go away. This doesn't look like the regular XCOM 2 start screen. You'll notice that you've got different menus down here. It's important to note this because your character pool is actually right up here. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to create a brand new character just to demonstrate this. Let's make sure that the gender is correct. First mistake if you ever make one. And scrolling down to the voice, my new pack should be right down the bottom. Here we go.
I hope this doesn't get me spotted. Quick and quiet. Here we go.
Eso haré. Ya estoy.
Quick and quiet.
It's a little bit quiet, but I can fix that in the actual recording of the voice bits. Or we can adjust the cue volume within the system. But overall, that's worked well. Now, common things that, common difficulties that people run into with this, the actual voice commands are not exactly the same as the ones that are listed within that. So this
I hope this doesn't get me spotted.
is not actually the dashing command within the voice pack. What I've had to do is I've had to go back and I've had to put the moving sound in every single empty slot that I didn't have a voice in until I could find the right one. Other common problems: once you've actually gone back and you've edited your pack, you need to remove it from your project, save your project, re-add it to your project, and then rebuild your project and then debug it, and then it will work. If you don't do it in that order, then you'll end up with the same pre-compiled file that was used the first time around, and you won't notice any change. But other than that, this seems to have worked quite... Let's change that properly.
Quick and quiet.
There you go. You can have my voice. And that is it for this tutorial. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope it's at least pointed you in the right direction for getting your own ones underway. As I said, we don't have a list of what all the different sounds do, so if anyone has that and can point me in the right direction for it, then I would greatly appreciate it, because it will save me recording sound test 1, sound test 2, sound test 3, and putting them in all the different slots to see what triggers what. I'm just going to finally show you how to leave this. You need to go to the final shell menus, which will take you back into the main game, and then you can finally exit to desktop. But thank you once again for watching, and good luck with your voice packs. See you soon.